Islam. Sheet the wind back today, Islam. I'm running today. I'm still your wife today. It's what is it? July the 17th, 2020. I'm about to read President Abraham Lincoln initial emancipation, September 22nd, 1862. Starting off with part 1. It says, right here. I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States of America and Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy thereof, do hereby proclaim and declare that hereafter, as heretofore, the war will be prosecuted for the object of practically restoring the constitutional relations between the United States and each of the states and the people thereof, in which states that relation is or may be suspended or disturbed, that it is my purpose upon the next meeting of Congress to again recommend the adoption of a practical measure tendering pecuniary aid to the free acceptance or rejection of all slave states, so-called, the people whereof may not then be in rebellion against the United States, and which states may then have voluntarily adopted or thereafter may voluntarily adopt immediate or gradual abolishment of slavery within their respective limits, and that the effort to colonize persons of African descent with their consent upon the continent or elsewhere, with the previously obtained consent of the governments existing there, will be continued. That on the first day of January in the year of our Lord 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state, the people whereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States, including the military and naval authority thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of such persons, and will do no act or acts to repress such persons, or any of them in any efforts they may make for their actual freedom. Part 2 of the initial Emancipation Proclamation by President Abraham Lincoln, September 22nd, 1862. That the executive will, on the first day of January aforesaid, by proclamation, designate the states and parts of the states if any, in which the people thereof, respectively, shall then be in rebellion against the United States, and the fact that any state or the people thereof shall on that day be in good faith represented in the Congress of the United States by members chosen thereto at elections, wherein a majority of the qualified voters of such state shall have participated, shall, in the absence of strong contravailing testimony, be deemed conclusive evidence that such state and the people thereof are not in rebellion against the United States. That attention is hereby called to an act of Congress entitled An Act to Make an Additional Article of War, approved March 31st, 1862, and which act is in the words and figures following, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that hereafter the following shall be promulgated as an additional article of war for the government of the Army of the United States, and shall be obeyed and observed as such. Article: all officers or persons in the military or naval services of the United States are prohibited from employing any of the forces under their respective commands for the purpose of returning fugitives from service of labor who may have escaped from any persons to whom such service or labor is claimed to be due, and any officer who shall be found guilty by a court-martial of violating this article shall be dismissed from service. This needs to be implemented today. These laws need to be implemented today, in this day and time. It's long. But if the United States military is controlled by a foreign entity, then that's where the issue is. If it's not controlled, if it's not naturalized, if the president's not naturalized, that's the issue. Section 2. And be it further enacted that this act shall take effect from and after its passage, also to the 9th and 10th section of an act of treason, and rebellion to seize and confiscate property of rebels and for other purposes, approved July 17, 1862, and which sections are in the words and figures following. Section 9. And be it, and also to be naturalized, that means you are saying you're part of the human family. If you're a part of the human family, you're naturalized. Naturalized under organic instrument, then that makes sense. But if you're not a part of the human family, that means you're an experiment and chemical creation of some sort. Something created you. Then these laws will not apply, and that's how you would be considered. You could be used, I guess, as you want to say, as a terrorist, to do harm, and still feel like you have the right to do so because you're not considered to be. You can never be naturalized. You're not considered to be a part of the human family, because you are not yourself human. You are yourself a clone or an experiment. Like I said, in Annapolis, we're among those that say that they are werewolves or speak the word werewolf as though they're a werewolf. Predominantly of them that do this are Spanish speaking. From Mexico, it looks like, El Salvador, South America, whatever, Central America. So if you think you are a werewolf, you are to be naturalized, and you are trying to, and you think you can pay for a human, okay, or you're a humanoid robot, and you think you can pay for a human. So you saying I'm paying Moors, I'm paying somebody so I can attack you mentally. I have paid somebody so I can rape you. I have paid somebody so I can molest you. Then these laws of freedom, you would not consider them important because you are trying to implement laws that are outside of natural law. So let me continue because I get off track. But what I'm doing is connecting reality with these laws of freedom. Okay? Because when you're dealing with experiments, these experiments were going on in this time too. We were among experiments in those times as well. And so now when I read this literature, I see differently. And by it further enacted that all slaves of person who shall hereafter be engaged in rebellion against the government of the United States, or who shall in any way give aid or comfort thereto, escaping from such person and taking refuge within the lines of the army, and all slaves captured from such persons or deserted by thee, and coming under the control of the government of the United States, and all slaves of such persons found on or being within any place occupied by rebel forces, and afterwards occupied by the forces of the United States, shall be deemed captives of war, and shall be forever free of their servitude, and not again held as slaves. And be it further enacted that no slave or slaves escaping into any state territory or the District of Columbia from any other state shall be delivered up or in any way impeded or hindered of his liberty, except for crime or some offense against the laws, unless the person claiming said fugitive shall first make oath that the person to whom the labor or service of such fugitive is alleged to be due is his lawful owner, and has not borne arms against the United States in the present rebellion, nor in any way given aid and comfort thereto, and no person engaged in the military. President Abraham Lincoln keeps checking the military. He keeps pointing out the military, and they said, I've heard more say that President Abraham Lincoln thought ahead of his time. He was so far ahead in his thinking. In these proclamations, he focused on the military. He is focusing on the military. He said, engage in the military or naval service of the United States shall, under any pretense whatever, assume to decide on the validity of the claim of any person to the service or labor of any other person, or surrender up any person to the claimant of pain of being dismissed from the service. And I do hereby enjoin upon and order all persons engaged in the military and naval service of the United States to observe, he said, President Abraham Lincoln said, observe, obey, and enforce within their respective spheres of service the act and sections above recited. President Abraham Lincoln, like I said, I've heard this said many times, that he was ahead of his time. He thought ahead. And I'm going to read the first part of this proclamation again. And I keep reiterating, this day and time we are among experiments that are outside of natural law. This is a demonstration of natural law being implemented. Freedom, the spirit of freedom, is a part of natural law. When you in Annapolis, so many times I give testimony about those among black Negroes, African American Negroes, pale skin, and those that speak Spanish keep saying paid, predominantly black Negroes, African Americans. They keep saying the word pay as though they paid for somebody. Now, how can you pay for someone if you implementing or you yourself are in natural law. If you are not in natural law, you don't pay for no one because you are in the spirit of freedom. But when you are outside of natural law, you are unnatural. Something about you is outside of natural law. Then you will try possibly to implement everything that's outside of the organic instrument of natural law, which governs the planet Earth, which the universe is based on. The universe and the planet Earth is based and is intertwined in natural law. So I, Abraham Lincoln, the President of the United States of America and Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, he's announcing he is the Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy thereof, do hereby proclaim and declare that hereafter, as heretofore, the war, he's saying there is a war going on. The war will be prosecuted for the object of practically restoring constitutional relations. So he's saying the war the war will be prosecuted for the object of practically restoring constitutional relations, to implement constitutional law, to implement this organic instrument, constitutional law, between the United States and each of the states, to get the states united back into the constitutional fold, and the people thereof, in which states that relation is or may be suspended or disturbed. Okay? So, right now, if you are considered or going by the status of white is not a nationality. So as a Moorish American, we learned that if you call yourself white, you are saying you don't have a nationality. You have to have a nationality in order to be in the constitutional fold, and you have to take an oath or affirm to be naturalized. If you're saying African American, black, Negro, all those terms are the same according to constitutional law. You are saying that you are not in a constitutional fold, that you are outside of constitutional law. You are outside of that organic natural instrument. You have to claim a nationality in order to be in a constitutional fold. Hispanic is not a nationality. You have to claim a nationality. When those that are from Japan, China, Italy, people that come from other countries come to this landmass, when they are naturalized properly under the laws of freedom, they have to proclaim their nationality. They tell the government their nationality when they are naturalized properly under the laws of freedom. This is July the 17th, 2021.